Well, YouTube, this is it. The end of the year. The end of the road. Well, I mean, it's not technically the end of the year because it's February. But it is I, the movie nerd, here to give you the first of the 2 videos that everybody has already done with, sort of. And that is my worst of the year, and then followed by my best of the year. I'll be wearing this suit for both of them, so you won't be able to tell when I'm recording these. But the point being, 2017 is over, thank Christ. And, oh man, I had to sit through some shit this year. Not as much shit as everybody else, though, because this is my personal worst of the year. So on this list, you will not see any Chips, any Emoji Movie, any Mummy, any Baywatch, any Dark Tower, any XXX, or any of the other shitty movies that made up a lot of people's others' worst of the year. This will be my own personal, unique, least favorite movies of 2017. Not all of you might agree with this list. There might be some entries on this list that you guys may be shaking your heads at and be like, wait a minute, this was worst of the year? Because while this may not qualify as other people's worst of the year, these are my 10 least favorite movies of 2017. The stinkers. The ones that by all means were absolute the shittiest of the shitty. And I had to sit through a lot of shitty movies this year. So, without further ado, this is it, people. The last videos that I will be doing for the year to wrap up the year of 2017. So without further ado, these are my top 10 worst movies of 2017. But before I get into it, let me just let you guys know that I will not be doing any dishonorable mentions this time because these are my 10 least favorite movies of the year. And when I talk about my least favorite movies of the year, I only want to talk about as few as I possibly can. Because I don't like shitting on movies. Contrary to a lot of other people on YouTube, I actually like talking about the things that I like about movies. And so when it comes to movies like these, the movies that completely disappoint me, the ones that completely tanked in my mind, the ones that disappointed me to the point where I can get no physical enjoyment out of them, I don't like to do that. So, let's get to it. Number 10. Number 10. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. What a silly, stupid, ridiculous movie that tried to market itself off as... I'm not quite sure what Yorgos Lanthimos was trying to market this off of. I know The Lobster was marketed as a comedy. I didn't watch The Lobster. Nothing about that movie even remotely interested me, even though I loved Colin Farrell. I decided to tune in this time, however, and give Yorgos Lanthimos a try. And holy shit was I let down. This was one of the goofiest premises for a movie I've ever seen. If you can wrap your mind around that, right, the premise, which I'm not going to spoil here, I'm going to try and keep that as spoiler free, but the point being, Colin Farrell is a spinal doctor and Nicole Kidman is his wife. He's friends with this kid who's played by Barry Keoghan. You might recognize him earlier on the year from Dunkirk. And this kid, you can already tell the minute that you get into it that something is up with this kid. But the point being that as the film goes on, you clearly realize that this kid is deranged in some way. And the fact that Colin Farrell is not able to see this and the fact that he still continues to not only hang out with this kid, but let him near his family, that's a little jarring. And then the movie has the audacity to go one step further and try and show that it's comedic, even though it's one of the most fucked up movies I've ever seen. You know what? I said that I wasn't going to spoil it, but fuck it. This is my worst of the year. I don't care. This kid played by Barry Keoghan places a curse on Colin Farrell's family because Colin Farrell let his dad die because he was drunk, maybe sort of. The movie clearly doesn't even care because the movie brings up halfway through that Colin Farrell's a friggin' alcoholic out of nowhere, and Barry Keoghan tells him in the middle of the movie, oh, by the way, I placed a curse on your family. They're slowly gonna, lose the ability to walk and the ability to eat until they slowly starve, and then they're gonna bleed from their eyes and die. Unless you kill one of them, that's the only way to remove the curse for letting my family die. Even though he gave no indication at all that he hated Colin Farrell until like halfway through the movie when he reveals the curse. This movie is really well shot. There's a lot of, long winding staircase shots. It feels very Kubrickian in nature, but the problem is besides from the sheer lunacy of the plot, is the fact of the writing of this movie. Oh my god. It's almost like Yorgos Lanthimos' style is trying to capture exactly what Wes Anderson does so well in his movies, but completely missing the charm and the wit that makes Wes Anderson movies as great as they are. So Killing of a Sacred Deer. Silly, stupid, not nearly as clever as it thinks it is, and it only makes a spot here at number 10 because all the other 9 movies that I saw were 1,000 times worse, and this was at the very least, for the most part, pretty well shot, and also didn't have nearly as bad CGI or really shitty comedy like these other movies did. So that's why Killing of a Sacred Deer, my number 10. Number 9. Rough Night. People, did you like The Hangover? Did you want a female version of it? Because Ghostbusters worked, right? Therefore, we should get female remakes of everything. Like Ocean's 11. That's getting a female remake, right? Everybody wanted that. Yeah, this movie is basically a female version of The Hangover. There's no getting around it. It's 4 friends who used to hang out back in the day, and they're going out for one of theirs bachelorette's party because she's about to be married. The lead chick this time being Scarlett Johansson, with her other 3 friends from college who are played by Jillian Bell, Alana Glazer, and Zoe Kravitz. Except when they go away for the weekend, Scarlett Johansson also brings her friend from her semester abroad in Australia, played by Kate McKinnon, who really is nothing special in this movie. I really don't understand all the hype that's around her. It's just another, like, fine Kate McKinnon performance. She's not offensively bad in the movie. That's Jillian Bell. My biggest problem with this movie is the fact that it has so many different opportunities to actually be really funny, and it misses the mark on almost every single occasion. None of the characters I find are interesting, except for 2. None of the side stories are even interesting. Jillian Bell, my god, I've hated her in every single thing that I've seen her in since 22 Jump Street, and she reaches a new low in this fucking movie. Poor Paul W. Downs, who helps co-write this movie and plays Scarlett Johansson's husband in the movie, is resorted to some sort of a weird trifecta of these constant gay jerking off truck stop jokes that don't hit at all, and it's almost like he's questioning what it is exactly he wrote for this movie. Really does suck because for the most part, all these actresses are trying their hardest. Alana Glazer and Zoe Kravitz, for me at least, are the best in the movie. Their storyline is the most interesting in the way that that wraps up, but the movie is just trying so hard to be The Hangover, and it's really, really obvious, except, you know, they figure, oh, let's just throw the typical dead body cliche in there, you know, we accidentally kill a male stripper, and then they do this weird twist at the end where it turns out that he was actually part of a group of 3 jewelry store thieves, and the other 2 come in to collect the body at the end, and then poor Colton Haynes from Arrow comes in as a stripper at the end. He's still better in this than he was in that season of American Horror Story, though. So yeah, Rough Night. Silly, stupid, not worth your time. I heard Girls Trip was way better. I would advise going and seeing that. I still have to see that, but it is on my list for movies that I missed from this year. So Rough Night, my number 9. Number 8. Free Fire, a movie from A24 about people stuck in a warehouse shooting people that has styles of Quentin Tarantino and is executive produced by Martin Scorsese. How could this movie have possibly gone wrong? Well, apparently it was very easy to screw this movie up because about almost 20 minutes in, I was already bored. And that's the problem. The whole premise of this movie is the fact that it's a gun deal that goes horrifically wrong because there's just one too many people in there that have way too many agendas and way too violent tempers. The problem is that you don't really get to know any of these characters too well, so by the time they actually start shooting, you don't care about any one of them. It's also really hard to tell them apart because, and this is not me being racist, there is only one black guy and it's perfectly understandable for the purpose of the movie. The problem is that they all have beards, they all have like really generic facial expressions, not any one of them really has any definitive character traits, so I can't really differentiate them. Compound that with the fact that none of them are really that interesting as characters, despite the fact that, yeah, I would say there are some pretty good performances in here. It's just kind of the same problem that I have with Dunkirk. I need to get invested in these characters in order to actually care about this movie, and I cared about none of them. Therefore, every single time somebody died, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy died. Oh, great. And the problem is that even though the action was entertaining, it just got boring after a while, because the problem is, and what this movie missed of what Quentin Tarantino always does so well, is the fact that you can't just have one shootout and one action set piece be the piece of your entire movie. It's a really great way to save money, and it works for as great as a short film, but for a feature-length, almost 2-hour movie, that's not what works at all. There's also the fact that somehow Brie Larson managed to be more distracting in this one than she was in Kong Skull Island, and I didn't even know that was possible. Ton of people that I love in here: Armie Hammer, Cillian Murphy, Charlotte Copley, Jack Rayner, Sam Riley. I can't remember any of the other actors off the top of my head, but a really fine bunch of actors that are all, for the most part, really wasted. This movie misses almost everything that makes a feature-length action film great, and overall it commits the biggest sin that movies can commit these days, and that is, it is boring. And how the fuck can a movie about a giant shootout be boring? That is why Free Fire is here at my number 8. Number 7. Power Rangers. How could this have gone wrong? It's a dark, gritty reboot that nobody asked for, with actors that for the most part nobody had heard of. It was gonna go great. Probably the most surprising thing about this movie is that all the kids, for the most part, actually, I would say, did a pretty good job with these parts, with the exception of "My mom is the best!" Ludi Lin as Zach, the Black Ranger. Christ, that line is the worst. Talk about a movie that's totally all over the place and can't decide what it wants to be at all, though. Like, this movie is one half teen drama and the other half a Power Rangers episode. It is more bipolar than friggin' Spider-Man was. The way that I can best describe this as is that once you're getting introduced to the teens in that weird, dark, gritty drama after that weird-ass opening, it is actually pretty interesting. These characters, for the most part, are interesting enough, and the kids do a good enough job with the acting. But then it gets to that middle segment where it's kind of like the training montage, and the problem is that that's where the really bad tonal shifts happen, because it's trying to blend the Power Rangers episode aspects with the young adult teen drama aspects that were set up in the first half, and not to mention the fact that the CG is really, really bad in this movie, so it creates a really weird blend. Then we get to the best part about this movie, kidding, the worst part about this movie, and easily still to this day, I saw this movie back in March, and this is still the worst performance that I've seen of the year, Elizabeth fucking Banks as Rita Repulsa, because while everybody else, even fucking Bryan Cranston, who showed up for one day to record his lines as Zordon, is taking this material more seriously than she is, because while everybody else is acting like they're in an actual movie, she is still in an episode of the TV show. Then we get to the last act of the movie, which really is just a straight up right out of an episode of the TV show, and the problem is the CG is just so bland and terrible. I have no idea what's going on. It's like taking the worst elements of Transformers and mixing them with what Pacific Rim Uprising looked like it's going to be. The thing that Pacific Rim did so well, which is really creating a good color palette that allows you to actually differentiate between the monsters and the robots so you can tell what's going on and therefore enjoy the action more and appreciate the spectacle. That's not at all what happened in that third act, and it really sucks because the post-credit scene was obviously setting up for a sequel that will never happen because the movie tanked at the box office, and oh man, do I even need to talk about the freaking product placement in this movie? How the hell is it that after 5 Transformers movies directed by Michael Bay, this movie manages to top them all with just one piece of product placement? How is that possible? Fuck 2017. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons of why 2017 is the worst, but fuck 2017. And yeah, Power Rangers, my number 7. Number 6. A Cure for Wellness. Another movie that I saw really well early on in the year, and this is a movie that nobody talked about, but the weird thing is that everybody that does talk about it now seems to actually think it's a good movie, which is really strange to me because after seeing this movie, it was so bizarre and strange that I actually had to literally the only way that I could review this movie was to literally just repeat what I just physically saw in order to convince people of just what the fuck. Yeah, Gore Verbinski decided to not come back and do any more Pirates sequels, and it's also decided to step off of any future Disney projects because Lone Ranger worked so well and do this fucking movie. Dane DeHaan has to follow one of his older executives at this company that he works at to this weird health spa in the middle of Germany for he's being blackmailed with reasons that are never explained throughout the entire movie. And he ends up uncovering this plot to keep this guy that runs the place, played by Jason Isaacs, immortal by draining the life force from other people's bodies because he's secretly the evil baron that ran the place, and there's some other thing involved where this weird little girl running around that turns out to also be 200 years old and he wants to sleep with her because it's really weird, and it's this whole big convoluted mess. And the shitty thing is that even though this does look really cool, the green eventually gives you a headache. Poor Dane DeHaan wasted in yet another friggin' blockbuster. I really want this kid to get back to his groundwork in 2012. He was sort of able to redeem himself a couple months later with Valerian, which was light years better than this fucking movie. This movie was completely nonsensical. I don't even know what Gore Verbinski was trying to go for in this movie. It sucked. Nobody remembers it though, thank God, but I do, and I have to suffer for it even more. So that's why Cure for Wellness is my number 6. Number 5. Kingsman, The Golden Circle. Fuck this movie. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear myself. I wasn't nearly loud enough there. I think I need to go again. Fuck this movie. Granted, you would think that I would be used to this by now because I have saw so many shitty, disappointing sequels over the last year that were completely unwarranted and unnecessary that I never in a million years thought that a sequel that I would actually be looking forward to for a movie that completely shocked and awed me and I never in a million years thought I would like as much as I did, completely shit the bed as much as this movie did. I just realized that last statement was completely nonsensical, but again, I don't care because fuck this movie! Matthew Vaughn, what the hell? How the fuck did this happen? You made one of the best original spy movies that so perfectly ripped off James Bond while being its own thing, and then you do a sequel that is almost nothing like the first one, completely changes character motivations, brings back a mentor completely unnecessarily, brings in unnecessary, useless celebrity cameos that play little to nothing, a villain that is somehow even worse than I could have possibly imagined, and is literally everything that Sam Jackson in the first one could have been, not to mention the fact that you waste friggin' Elton John. I thought better of you. You're the guy that gave us Kick-Ass. You're the guy that saved the X-Men franchise. How do you do this? I've heard some people say that this movie Men in Black 2's itself, but honestly, I would watch Men in Black 2 over this fucking piece of shit any day of the week. And how the hell did the amazing choreography and fight scenes from the first movie get replaced by this awful looking CGI that looks like it's right out of a goddamn cartoon? Yeah, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, not a good sequel, not a good movie. Don't watch it in any stretch of the imagination. Just go rewatch the first one. If you want to like preserve any semblance of likability that you have for that first movie, just stick with the first movie. Number 4. Home Again. Reese, you almost had me. You proved that you still have got it with Big Little Lies. And then you had to go and do this movie. Why? Because kids, that's exactly what happens when you move to Hollywood. You and your buddies go out, you get exactly the type of deal that you want, but because you're just not quite white and privileged enough to get an apartment of your own, you end up managing to bang a single mom whose husband just happens to be overseas and is also super hot and has 2 kids that are perfectly in need of a mentor and who also have a granny who is somehow okay with this idea and then lets you and your friends move in because you're able to form this one big weird-ass happy family. This movie... Now, if any of that made any semblance of sense to you, then you already got more out of this movie than I did. It is so perfect to the point, like, not the movie itself, the movie is crap, but, like, the whole lifestyle of, like, and perception of California, and it's so fake to the point that it annoys me so much because it's, like, my dream, obviously, is to do something in that state, and the fact that I know now that it is not even close to being that easy just annoys and frustrates and belittles me to my core. So, yeah, I'm done talking about this movie because I don't want to talk about this movie, and I still have 3 absolute garbage piles to talk about. So yeah, Home Again, my number 4. Number 3. Geostorm. This movie is a special case because I saw all the trailers and I knew exactly what I was in for. I saw the creative team behind it. I saw all the people in it. I saw how bored all of those incredible actors that I've seen give amazing performances, some as early as the year before, in this movie. And I still got a piece of shit. Jesus Christ, I have nothing against Gerard Butler. He's given us some good movies in the past, but how the fuck does this guy keep getting leading roles? Almost every single movie that he's done in the past 5 years has ranged from mediocre crap to complete crap. His accent in this movie ranges from barely trying to do an American accent to just straight up not giving a fuck, and somehow his brother, who's played by Jim Sturgis, is even worse in this movie. Accent-wise, I mean, they're both trying their hardest. The problem is none of them know what movie they're in, so they really don't know what kind of a performance to give. But of course, the thing that I was looking forward to seeing the most, the CG weather looking completely unrealistic and just destroying natural landmarks, the thing that I enjoyed so much about the movie 2012. I didn't even get that much in that movie. It was barely any in it. I really thought the disaster cliches that I've come to love about Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin's shitpiles over the last couple of years, the things that actually entertained me going back and rewatching those movies, would be in more of this movie, but nope. But don't get me wrong, when those scenes did happen, few and far between as they were, I did get some solid laughs out of that movie. Watching fake CG water roll over a desert was maybe one of the funniest things I saw this year. The rest of this movie, don't care. Gerard Butler's up in a spaceship trying to find out who is causing the satellite to cause all the rogue weather, don't care. Jim Sturgis and Abby Cornish are having a relationship on the side. Abby Cornish's accent somehow is worse than Gerard Butler and Jim Sturgis's combined, don't care. Andy Garcia is the president, great. Ed Harris is the VP, I think, don't care. Oh yeah, Zazie Beetz from Atlanta's in this movie. She's the best part about this movie. Did I remember that she was in this movie? Not until now. I would tell you more about it, but ugh. Number 2. Pirates of the Caribbean. Dead Men Tell No Tales. Now, I originally had this movie at number 1, but the thing that saved this movie from being in the worst of the year is a little thing called rewatchability, because I unfortunately didn't necessarily watch my number 1 choice again, but I watched 2 other people watch my number 1 choice again, and realized that really there was no other place for my number 1 choice to be. This fucking movie, I saw this movie over Baywatch. Now, I am glad I did, but the fact that this movie took a franchise that for the most part I really enjoyed when I was a kid. Looking back, I didn't necessarily enjoy it as much as other people did, but those first 3 Pirates movies, even 2 and 3 sequels that have gotten a lot of flack over the years, had some really solid, awesome moments in them. Did this movie? Nope. Did it do the exact same things that everybody criticized 2 and 3 for doing, and yet so shamelessly paraded them in front, not to mention the fact that compounded that it is 10 years after the 3rd one, that by this point nobody gives a fuck? Yes, it did! And despite the fact that I'm still one of the people adamant that Johnny Depp should not only retire from Hollywood but go to jail for just the offensiveness that he has committed in both his real life and on the big screen in the last couple of years, he is surprisingly not the thing that I hate the most about this movie. Simply for the fact that it is almost kind of hilarious how much he does not care about being in this movie at all. Just to put this in perspective, on New Year's Eve this year, I rewatched the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and it's not the greatest film ever, but it is a really solid, well-made film. And Johnny Depp, he is acting his ass off because he actually gives a shit. He is fully embracing the weird mix of those ancient Caribbean pirates and Keith Richards that he was doing for the movie, and surprisingly pulled it off. He earned that Oscar nomination that he got for that first movie. Is any of that Jack Sparrow found here? Nope. And oh yeah, Javier Bardem is stuck in some really awful-looking CG leading yet another ghost army, because if there's one thing that these fucking Pirates movies can't function without, it's a goddamn undead ghost army. And just when you think when the movie and this franchise is finally about to end, don't think of a post-credit scene, because yep, we're definitely gonna get more Pirates movies after this. Don't know if the Chinese box office is gonna save this one though, because Universal still canceled the Dark Universe after the Mummy tank, so fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, come on Disney. I still hate you for buying Fox, but please, please, do me this one solid. Please, no more Pirates movies. Alright, let's talk about this one last shitty movie and then let's wrap it up and get out of here. And my number one selection is Transformers: The Last Fucking Night, and hopefully the last one of these shitty movies. Now this movie, I have admitted before, I love the first 4 Transformers movies. Yes, I said it. I like Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. I like Transformers Dark of the Moon, and I like Transformers Age of Extinction. Not because they're good movies, not by any stretch of the imagination because they're good movies, but because they managed to remind me of that feeling that I had when I was 10 years old watching that first Transformers movie in theaters. Think about it. When you're a 10-year-old kid, specifically a 10-year-old boy, because 10-year-old girls, you know, they have different sensibilities, watching that, at the time, beautiful CG on screen, watching these Transformers that you heard these stories about, and that you'd watch the cartoons on the big screen, presented in some of the most gloriously, disgustingly masculine ways you could possibly think of. It's every 10-year-old boy's best dream. So much so that it blindsided me for almost the next 10 years. So much so that even as the movies got worse and worse and I grew up a little more each year and realized what was wrong with each movie over and over again, I was still able to go back and watch those movies in order to get some sort of enjoyment out of them. Was that here this time? Nope. I fell asleep twice during this movie, woke up, and found out that it was still going. And the worst part was, I'm pretty sure this is the shortest Transformers movie since the first movie. The movie can't even keep to its own logic because every single plot point that it throws into it just abandons 2 seconds later in order to go into some other thing that's going to get abandoned 2 seconds later. They start off with another pointless overall narration that has something to do with Transformers interfering in another ancient part of who gives a shit human history that, like, literally, like, I'm laughing just thinking about it. That literally sort of kind of plays in later on, but not really. Then you get kids involved because, oh yeah, we're gonna be Stranger Things just like every other major blockbuster that's come out over the last year, except they ditch those kids once Mark Wahlberg comes in, except they keep one kid around, you know, the kid that was like in front of all the marketing to show, see, get it? We care about girls too! Isabella Moner, the chick from the Legend of the Hidden Temple new movie that came out, she sort of did well. I don't know. I barely remember her in the movie. The US government is still hunting Autobots for some reason, and Josh Duhamel is back because he can't get work anywhere else, and so the US government, because they can't find the Autobots, decides to make a deal with Megatron, who, again, is barely in this movie, and they bring back Frank Welker to do the voice completely unnecessarily. It really kills me because Frank Welker, obviously, he's the original Megatron, and the fact that he keeps getting wasted in these shit boxes just kills me. Then the movie rips off Suicide Squad, introducing the other Decepticons, because why not? It's Transformers 5. Why not rip off Suicide Squad? Only to kill all of them off literally 5 seconds later. Then, even better, after that, Mark Wahlberg and Bumblebee get completely taken away from everybody else. The other Autobots, Isabella Moner, they're all completely forgotten because they're dragged to meet up with Anthony Hopkins, who wandered onto the set of here thinking that it was Westworld, and they literally just play off of the dementia that I'm assuming he's gotten in real life because he has to have dementia in real life in order to actually, you know, accept filming this movie. They go on some tomfoolery mission with some butler who is just got some of the worst line delivery ever, who's voiced by Jim Carter, who seriously needed a paycheck after Downton Abbey ended. Find Merlin's staff, which is at the bottom of the ocean, who gives a shit, and only then, 2 hours into the movie, once they finally got Merlin's staff, does Optimus Prime show up, and he's evil now because he met up on Cybertron with some evil alien creator that's bringing Cybertron to Earth. Why? Because Michael Bay just can't stop ripping off shit because he's completely run out of ideas and now resorts to ripping off one of easily my favorite Transformers property, Transformers Prime, because he literally takes the plot device that encompasses the entire first season and makes that a plot point in this movie. Yep. The Earth is Unicron again. Does this movie remember or care? Nope. Transformers The Last Night is not only an abomination of filmmaking, but it is also easily one of the most lazy excuses to sell toys I've ever seen. I still refuse to call this a movie. I literally just thinking about it like leaves a disgusting taste in my mouth for a franchise that I once was really entertained by. The fact that it has gotten completely this low. This is the worst movie, not only of this year, but one of the worst movies that I've seen in a very long time. Fuck Transformers The Last Night. Michael Bay, hopefully you can make another Pain and Gain in the future to redeem yourself, because you need I need a while. I need to go like take a hot shower after this in order to wash the stench of this movie off. Fuck this movie. Fuck this year. I need to go because talking about these movies has just made me feel sick as a human being. I'll be back later on to do my best movies of the year. You guys know what to do. I'm the Movie Nerd. I'll see you guys next time. Fuck 2017.